Hi, welcome to the Zoar Bakery. Zoar was a communal village, and the bakery made up a very important part of the baking of the bread to see that all the families got their daily allotment of bread. This room here is the bread cellar. After the bread had been baked, they would put it on the shelves there along the wall to cool. They always ate their bread cold. Little room down below, that was their refrigerator. Anything that needed to be kept cold was down there. Eggs, milk, butter, cheese. There is another room down there that you cannot see that they kept potatoes in. Potatoes is an important part of the making of bread, so they needed to have potatoes here. If you want to follow me, I'm going to take you back to the ovens. These were the ovens that they used to bake the bread, and I always like to explain that these are not the original ovens. These ovens were put in the early 1960s, but they look exactly like the ovens would have looked in the 1800s. If you want to just pan up closely, you can see the oven here. I've got it all set up. The wood is in there. They needed to fire it up every day to heat the ovens in order to bake the bread. Now with the baking of bread, the bakers were up at 3:30 every morning, coming in, putting the wood in the ovens, and they only used hickory in these ovens. Hickory is a very hard wood. It was a wood that could get the ovens hot enough, long enough, that they could bake anywhere from 80 to 100 loaves of bread every day. As with the ovens, after they had fired it up, they kept a bucket here with a broom that they could clean the oven out. You wouldn't want to put bread into an oven that had cinders in it, but they had scraped all of the cinders out or ashes that went down a chute into bins below. Now they're scraping the ashes that are left out. The important part now is you cannot put the bread in right away. The oven is going to be way too hot. You have to let it cool down to put the bread in. As you notice, there's no 250, 350, 450 here on the ovens. So what the baker had to do in order to be sure was to stick his hand into the oven. And he would count 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. By the time he got to about 10 or 11 1,000, you could go ahead and put the bread in. Now we're baking the bread after it's baked, taking it out, putting it down into the bread cellar to let it cool. This is what they used as an ingredient for their bread. This right here is hops. They grew hops here all throughout the village, had a brewery, and being good Germans that they were, made their own beer. But you needed it also for the bread. You're going to boil the hops, then mix that hops water, which is now fermented, with mashed potatoes. There is your yeast, your rising agent. You would now mix it with your flour. You have got bread. This was the basic way they baked their bread. Also, too, I mentioned they had always ate their bread cold. They ate their bread cold because of the yeast. If you ate it warm or hot, there was always a chance that yeast could still be working, and you're going to be in quite a bit of distress. This right here, every home had a bread cloth. Now that bread cloth was a lot bigger than this. I just have it here as a sample. I don't know whether you can see it or not, but there is a house number in the corner. This is house number 22. When you came here each day to get your bread, The baker is going to see the house number. He knows how many people are living in house number 22. He is going to give you ample supply of bread. They would just put it like this, stack it, fold the corners up, and now you can take your bread home. A lot of the times when school was in session, the children, after being in class all day, would bring their bread cloth down and get the bread that the family would have needed. If you want to follow me, I'm going to take you in now to the baking room. This is where they would have mixed the bread. We will show you the flour bins. With the bread, the bakers were not only baking for the village, but they were also baking for the hotel. So cookies, pastries, as they were able to bake that, was now just going to the hotel. So this was a very, very busy building. So much so that in time they had to have another oven. But we no longer have that building. It has since gone. But the cookies, I like to show everybody, these are the cookie cutters. These are original cookie cutters. And as you notice, they just weren't round or square, but they were animals. There's a flower there, birds, dogs, different shapes that they used for their cookies. This up here is a dough tray. Your bread is going to rise in the dough trays. After it is risen, they are going to punch it down. Then they will shape it into round loaves, which are then put into round baskets that they would have had here. And it's allowed to rise a second time, and from that basket it would then go into the ovens to bake. They went through quite a bit of flour. These were the flour bins. These are also the original flour bins. First mill they had here in the village was a flour mill, a grist mill. They seen the importance of kneading flour. It was brought up here on a daily basis. The bins were kept full. On Monday, whoever was doing the cooking, and each building would come up and get flour that she would use at home for the baking of dumplings or noodles or things she could fix in the soups and stews. Also, too, this was always on Monday, she would come to get this because Monday and Tuesday were laundry days at the laundry. As she made her noodles or spetzels, they would come to the top. She would take the noodles off. She would take the remaining liquid then to the laundry, where they would use it as starch. They wasted nothing in this village. They kept everything that they possibly could in order to keep things running smoothly and to survive. I'm now going to take you into the room here. This was the distribution room. These windows here, you could open the windows up. They would swing out. Whoever was coming for their daily bread would stand here at the window, hand the baker their bread cloth. He then would get their bread. It all ran very, very smoothly, unless there happened to be a day where the ovens were didn't stay warm enough, long enough to completely bake all of the bread. On those days, they had a bread that was not quite right, and unfortunately, they still had to eat this bread. So you tried to get here first in order to get the best bread. How's that?